the only show focused on Stars improvement strategies and the leaders who implement them. This is the Rising Stars with Rex Wallace Show, brought to you by Hyperlift.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Rising Stars, Season 3, Episode 1. So I'm Rex, and here is my esteemed co-host, Mick. Mick, how you doing?
I'm good, Rex. Thank you, sir.
How was your break in between seasons? Did you get a big long break?
eager to be back. Actually looking forward to some of the stuff that we have coming up. So yeah, I actually am eager to be back.
You know, we find ourselves here in late February. Lots of Stars activities going on, and in one in particular that's core to every Medicare Advantage plan that we're going to dig into today. A couple of great guests. And I guess real quick, I want to make a statement. This is not a new fashion statement. This is not a season 3 fashion statement. The hat yesterday in the sort of a public service announcement too. I had some basal cell carcinoma on my forehead and went and had Mohs surgery yesterday, which was very, very good, but left a little bit of a scar, about 2.5 inches long. So you don't want to see that. So I'm wearing this hat. So don't make fun of it, Mick. I know you want to. Again. I know you want to.
I'm restraining.
All right. But hey, today we're going to talk about connecting the dots between the bid and Stars. Again, every Medicare Advantage plan, has to file a bid every year. And just maybe 30 seconds on the bid before we bring in our guests, just at a high level description here for anyone who's not super close to it or in the weeds. But every Medicare Advantage plan files a bid early in the year for the next year. And that bid, it involves their plan design, right? So the benefits that they're filing for all their contracts, and our guests will get much deeper into this. But this is the time of the year when that bid is filed, when plan designs for the next year are created, when premiums are starting to be calculated and cost shares. And a lot goes into that from a competitive standpoint, understanding where your competitors are going. And there are a lot of great strategies as far as who's in the room and, different benefits to consider based on where you are. We'll get into, I'm sure, a lot of that today, but that's what we're talking about. There's a really tight correlation there, and it's a really important topic. So our guests today are Jenn Kerfoot. Jenn, we've wanted to have Jenn on for a long time, and so glad we're finally having you on, Jenn. You are, I feel like a best friend to like everyone in the industry, and you've worked at a few key places, and you've put them all on the map when you've been there. So I can't overstate how much I learn from you every time I talk to you, and every conversation we have, I'm like taking notes and feel like I should be paying you a retainer for all the wisdom that is coming out of that brain. So that you share generously. So excited to have you on. So Jenn is the Chief Everything Officer, I think, at Duos. I think growth and strategy. I'll let you just do some more intro in just a second, but so glad to have you on. And then our second guest, another of the brightest minds in all of Stars, and we're so glad to have her on. Another one we've wanted to have on for a long time, but Jess Muratore, who is a chief operating officer for a little boutique consulting firm called RWC, works really closely with me, obviously. And one of my favorite people on the planet, and one of the smartest people on the planet too. So glad to have you guys on. And I'll let you have just a few seconds here to maybe tell the audience about a little bit more about you, who you are, what you do, and where you're from, anything like that. So Jenn, you want to go first?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Rex and Mick. Super excited. What is it? Long-time listener, first-time caller. I think that's how it goes. But I'm Jenn Kerfoot. I'm the Chief Strategy and Growth Officer at Duos.
Okay.
As much as Chief Everything or Chief Party Officer sounds, I do sometimes have a hand in strategy and also growth at Duos. Spent my career, started on the payer side of the table as VP of operations at a couple Medicare Advantage health plans. Real passion around Stars, as well as the bid cycle as well. And then went around to some other organizations, and now I'm here at Duos. Used to be in the military as well. And I live in Nashville, Tennessee. So looking forward to seeing everyone at Rise National in a couple weeks.
Fantastic. And Jess.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Jenn, also, always good to see you. Jessica Muratore, I am the Chief Operating Officer of RWC, and I have spent the past 10 to 12 years on the health plan side before coming consulting. Small regional plan, all lines of business experience, and then moved into a large national where I took on several different teams, really like focused on market engagement and performance improvement strategy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. Yeah, no, so excited for you too. Mick, you want to jump in with any questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess as we start thinking about the bid process in general, should we start off by just saying, how do you start with this, and are there any maybe unique pieces of advice that you guys might launch with?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one next. So Jenn and I have spent a lot of time talking about this topic, and I want to give her credit for saying this because she said to me, the bid is the twin to stars. So if you think about that, what she's saying is the bid's the input metric and stars is an output metric, right? So the bid, something you have to consider is the bid is done at the PVP level. So you can have a contract that has multiple PVPs, but stars are given at the contract level. So really thinking about this strategically, every one of your PVPs needs to be fashioned in a way that will win for the PVP financially, right? But then also produce that output metric and high performance in stars. And so, when you're planning the bid and you think about starting that whole process, you really do want to start with the end in mind, and like, what does winning look like at the PVP level? And then what would it look like from the stars perspective, right? Like at the contract level.
I think it's also important to think about, if we're starting in the end in mind of what success looks like overall. Sometimes you might be in a really high growth year, and sometimes, and I think 2025 might be one of those years. We got to double down on retention, accurate and timeliness of risk capture, and also just keeping water out of the boat as we take on a little bit more water in terms of plan liability. Being that we have a lot of provisions from the Inflation Reduction Act really hitting health plans hard in 2025. So when you're thinking about where you want to start, because it's kind of a really big process and it's easy to boil the ocean. Jess and I were having a great conversation about, you just got to really know your population. And I think, Jess, you were talking with me about really great ways to understand the membership.
Yeah, really, your member mix, like, are they healthy? Are they low risk? Are they agents? Are they switchers? Did they have med supplement plans before that? With those PVPs, do you have D-SNPs? Do you have, high risk members that you need to be addressing? That all needs to be taken into consideration. And I think plans really need to understand the member mix, their member population, to really start effectively with the bid strategy process. Because if you don't understand your population, it's going to be really hard to mitigate financial risk. It's going to be hard to build out, supplemental benefits that they're going to utilize. And then also taking the member experience into mind from that stars perspective. Like, you have to know your member population to really be able to influence member experience effectively.
One of the things that when I was at a plan and I was thinking about starting this process at the beginning of my career, a really great piece of advice that was given to me is, who else touches your members? And so a lot of health plans that I've since talked to, they said, we're the payer and we sit at the center of the wheel. And I said, well, let's look at, part of your membership. You're actually, in many ways, 3 to 4 degrees of separation away from that affinity with that member. Maybe their first, touch point into your plan is through a broker. We look at ethnic and minority communities. They really rely on their broker to be that kind of entry point into healthcare for them. So they might have affinity there. And if that ladders up, for example, in my experience, about 70% of my membership was held between about 4 different FMOs. Well, I got to make sure that I'm paying the piper and keeping them happy. Otherwise, they might flip my books the next year. And that's going to hurt me on a revenue perspective. The other one is, thinking about, where do I have value-based care arrangements? Do I have network adequacy sitting with one IPA? Well, we see in the news a lot of different provider groups are just leaving managed care completely. Well, what's that going to mean for my membership? And then looking at, when does the member get really a touch point with me? Are they only calling me when they have a question about their EOB, or are they calling me because, they're on, a care management plan and they're talking to one of my case managers, consistently. So really understanding like the Venn diagram, or keep making different Venn diagrams of like, where's the intersection of where everything overlaps. And then you can start thinking about what individuals to start bringing to the table while you start that bid planning process.
When I think about some of our clients and how they've, maybe the ones who at least it feels like they're more on top of this, right, or more prepared for it heading into bid season. I think about, and you kind of mentioned brokers, right, Jen? So that's sometimes the first touch point for a potential member, right? But I think it just makes me realize that the starting point for this whole bid strategy, it really starts last year, right? Like it starts like when you when I think about these clients, they have like broker focus groups starting as soon as OEP is over the prior year, right? Or even I guess I think actually during OEP, so that it can inform the bid that's filed in early June, right? So they're while members are still even enrolling during OEP, they're interviewing brokers and saying what's working, what's not for our plans, what are the competitors doing, right? Like what are members leaving for or coming to certain plans for, to inform the bid that's being filed right then, for the following year. But it makes me think about stakeholders, right? So even in the room, who are some of the key departments you guys would say, if you're a relatively new MA plan and you're just standing up this bid strategy session for the first time, who are some of the key people that need to be at the table?
Well, obviously you want your actuaries this year. If you're not friends with your actuaries this year, now would be the time to go meet an actuary. If you don't know what an actuary is, a quick Google search might be helpful, but they're very, very good at math, and they either really like my kind of humor or they don't. So don't take offense to that. That's just actuaries in general. But getting really in the nitty gritty with your actuaries and making friends with actuaries, compliance, I think was always very, very helpful for me, because they're going to lay the parameters and those guardrails so you can innovate. It's going to be a really difficult balancing act for 2025. So having compliance and the actuaries on either side of you being like, this is their guardrails, and then where the boundaries are that you can iterate and you can innovate, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think this is going to be pretty obvious to us as a group, but the title of this is what? The intersection between bid and stars, and the stars
Maybe.
team or the quality team. The table.
We might have a more robust title, but go ahead.
You're right. I think Jen came up with that earlier. But having the stars team at the table, I can't even tell you how many times I have conversations with health plans and I ask them, the stars leader or folks within the stars team, and I'm asking them, like, what's going on with the bid strategy? And they have no idea. They're not invited to the table. They're not putting any commentary in. And that is a huge, huge gap with any health plan. If the stars team isn't at the table having a conversation with those actuaries and the product team and so many others, when we talk about the bid is the twin to stars, and that the bid is the input and stars are the output metric. If the stars team is at the table helping you understand the impact of some of the changes that you're going to make or some of the additions you're going to be putting into the bid, then you're not going to have the outcomes that you're looking for. That doesn't set you up for a winning strategy to pave the way to, where you need to win at the contract level.
Absolutely. I think too, it's ensuring that while you're creating this team, something that I've been really passionate and obsessed in my career about is democratizing like a shared lexicon. So if your stars team has never been able or invited to participate in the bid process, just product team, if you're listening to this, do a quick crash course, bid 101. What is the benchmark? What is the rebate? Why does this matter? What does that look like for us from financials? And then it's incumbent upon the stars team to say, okay, well, if this is what you're putting in, and I think we're going to talk a little bit later about some different things that you can do within the bid that you might see an output, either positive or negative, in your star ratings, making sure that your star ratings team is going to the product team and all other teams really, and democratizing this shared understanding. Because there's too many times that I've seen where individuals are like, well, I don't understand what you do. And so clearly, like, you just don't get how important the work I'm doing is, and vice versa. So I think, just starting out, if you haven't already, just like a quick fact sheet of like, this is what I do, and this is why it's important to the work you do. Because I think collaboration and consolidation of resources, again, I can't say it enough, in 2025, it's a must have.
So how do you go about that process of engaging the right people and communicating the right information so that those of us on the star side understand, what it is that you guys are doing that does have a positive impact or will impact stars in some way?
Yeah, Mick, don't ask questions that we can't give answers to.
Oh, I'll give answers. I think that's why
I'm totally teasing now.
I'll give a pithy answer for that. I mean, I think when you're like trying to build consensus, and a lot of times we hear at conferences, okay, well, you got to break down silos, and the people's like, but how do I do that? Or how, if I don't have an executive leader that's really committed to breaking down that silos, what can I do with my own internal departments? In my experience, bribes work very well. Pizza brings everyone to the table. And also outside of bribes, and all jokes aside, making, when you're trying to share information with people, like really short and bite size, like not trying to give them the tech specs and say, here, read this. That's how you figure out what I do. But like, what are like the 10 most important things that you need your product team to know, and vice versa? What's the 10 things? Go to risk and say, for 2025, what's the closest crocodile to your canoe? What is the thing keeping you up at night? What's your greatest fear? Or another way to frame it is like, if we don't do this, what's going to get us all fired? Like that sometimes gets people like really motivated to talk to you. Like nobody wants to lose their job. You can really bond over that.
I like what's the closest crocodile to your canoe? I've never heard that.
I can't get it out of my head. Yeah.
Being in Southeast Texas, that resonates. Having seen some at a lake last year.
Yeah, no, I like the scare tactics too, Jenn, because coming from a compliance background, I like to stick to like financials and compliance. And being a stars leader for so long, one of the things that I realized is the stars leader is the orchestrator, they're the influencer, whether you like it or not. And so it's your responsibility to empower your team and to empower other stakeholders to want to contribute to high performance in stars ratings and educating. But to Jenn's point, like, don't go out there with like a 2-hour PowerPoint and try to teach them everything. Just help them understand where they fit into the stars puzzle and what they need to be doing to improve, and how what they're doing has a direct impact on the output measure, right? Like the stars ratings. And talking, I mean, bribing does absolutely work, but going in, like seeking to understand and asking questions and helping them help you understand, like, to your point, what keeps them up at night, what are their biggest challenges, what are they focused on, and then do the same with them. And you can come to some common ground and help people understand what you really need to accomplish. And then I feel like that is relationship building, and communication is the best thing for those silos.
If I was going back to a plan right now, and if I was accountable for, let's say, the Medicare Advantage line of business, and we were kicking off our bid strategy sessions, like it feels like I think I would want to orient everyone in that bid strategy room, right, on the same things, not just stars, but for like, what are the closest crocodiles to the canoe for our entire Medicare Advantage line of business this year. So, and have maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a slide on our top stars pain points and priorities, our top risk adjustment pain points and priorities, right? Our top medical cost, maybe provider engagement challenges. Which of our providers do we have to form better relationships with, or have better contracts with, or right? Like it feels like that education on the front end for the people that are about to go through 5 months of weekly strategy sessions, right, to determine our future. Like, I don't think that happens enough, right? I don't feel like everyone, because I'm in quite a few bid strategy sessions every year, and there's always conflict between managing costs. We have to keep our costs down, or we have to grow, but or we have to provide better access to care and better quality scores for stars. And you can't do all of that, right? Like you have to determine as an organization what your biggest priorities are. But and that's where I want to go here is, what is your advice to plans who do have those, they have big challenges, they're they think they need to put more prior authorizations in place to manage costs more effectively, but knowing that's going to hurt access to care and CAP survey and and stars in general. What is your guidance there?
Yeah, Jen and I were talking about this pretty extensively the other day, and it's really, I think what you're asking, Rex, is are the enhancements to the bid and the benefits strong enough to support the extent of the improvement needed, right? And the financial longevity of the health plan. And is a great example. Prior authorizations help to control costs, right, amongst many other things. But they also have an impact on member experience. And I was actually just talking to a client about this the other day with statin intolerance with the SPC and SUPD measures, where if you don't have prior authorizations on those medications for members who have statin intolerance, then you should consider that, because it'll help with your STAR scores for those measures, right? You'll have a prior authorization that comes in and medical documentation. You can count them as exclusions then. But on the flip side, especially if those members have never had prior auth in those medications before, you put that in place, you could risk, access to care issues and member experience and causing abrasion with a member. So the balance is, if you need to do that, especially these coming years, especially 2025, with all of the regulatory changes with the IRA and Plan D redesign coming down the pipeline, like the name of the game is to cut costs as much as possible. That is going to impact your quality scores. But in cases like that, you need to get in front of those members. You need to educate them. You need to help them understand what the changes are. You need to get in front of the providers and help them understand. You need to make sure that your PA process is effective and easy to use. So it's a lot of work that needs to go into this. And when you have multiple PBPs per contract, and they're all different, you have a D-SNP and straight MAPD, and this MAPD has, 5 different options with just, multiple different supplemental benefits. Like, you have to do that for every single PBP and weigh the pros and cons there. And then, like we've been saying, like that all pulls up to the contract level, which is where the STAR is assigned, right? So it's not easy. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to get harder with all of these changing regulations coming through.
I would say too, for 2025, it's going to be a really interesting year, because the Inflation Reduction Act is just going to it hits everyone like very, very hard. Like, I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, the donut hole is now a long john. The hole got new. There's just like, it's like one donut, just a piece of donut. And to see, that, catastrophic movement where now the plan liability is so much higher. I saw it's going up, about, I think, up to 60% now, where it used to not exist. And so it's going to be super critical for health plans to be just really focused. And I say, like, when you're running a race, you have to look forward. Don't look in your side mirrors. Don't look in your rearview mirror, and you just keep running. Because if you looking backward and seeing what other plans in your area are doing, they're having the same struggles as you are, and you're using them essentially to kind of be that draft or that kind of guidepost for you. Teddy Roosevelt, says, like, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to that, where the plan next door is. Compare yourself to where you are today and where you want to be next year. And so thinking about, in terms of where is your membership hitting when we're thinking about cost, in terms of how quickly will they hit catastrophic? Well, if they're going to hit catastrophic in that first quarter because of some of the medications and therapeutic areas, then how can you focus on designing your overall bid structure to encourage members or encourage your providers to get your members in for that annual wellness visit or that new to Medicare visit before that mid-year sweeps? So it's really just really orchestrated timing and execution, and you can't do it for all members all at once. So looking at how you can take that phased approach and really be laser focused on what does it mean to win at that PVP level, and how does that ladder up to your organizational H contract strategy for star ratings, because there's a lot of plans, and Jess and I were going back and forth on this when we were having a conversation around this, that there are so many PVPs that I look at and that she's looked at that I say, like, well, this is so disjointed from the collection of PVPs. You have, your contracts are fighting, your logos, you have multiple different logos fighting against each other in the same area. And, at the end of the day, nothing makes sense for at that top of the contract level that you're trying to achieve. So looking at where you can consolidate, but also just be really aligned in what you need to hit the winning metric for the PVP and then the overall winning metrics for that H contract level.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have a perspective on, I keep thinking of some of our clients who have dozens of PVPs and maybe not that many contracts, but, like clients who have 3 or 4 contracts, but 30 PVPs, and right. So, literally like 7 or 8 under each contract. Right. And it's, I think when they were originally designed, they all had a purpose. Right. But I feel like they kind of all bleed together at some point and just create confusion. I think the average Medicare Advantage, beneficiary has a choice of around 40 plans in their zip code. Right. It's funny. I was in the grocery store this morning buying bandages for said stitch, and there were like, I'm not kidding, like 75 different styles and designs and colors, and it took me 10 minutes just to pick a box of bandages. But if I'm a Medicare member and have 40 different plan choices to pick from, it's just overwhelming, right? Like, and even within the infrastructure of a plan that has 40 PVPs, or that's not even counting, of course, like the nationals who have a lot more than that. But it's a lot, right? Like, how do you any thoughts on helping plans, how plans should go about managing that, or what their strategy should be, or what they should consider?
I gave some advice to someone the other day, and I said, if this year the PVP software APIs don't work and you have to enter each PVP manually, would you want this many PVPs? And they're like, well, no. I said, well, assume that it's not going to work and look through each of your PVPs and say, if I had to enter these line by line myself, which ones would I cut and why would I cut it? Is it that they no longer make sense for the strategy we had when we originally created them? Don't just keep them around. It's like doing like spring cleaning, or that, what is that lady? The joy of cleaning, that Marie Kondo cleaning. Like, does it bring you joy? If it doesn't, get rid of that PVP. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then what's your strategy as a glide path to get the member into a PVP that fits the member? If it's, it's the right plan, right care, right meds, right time for that member. If that's what's going to optimize that member experience, that access to care, it's going to help you out on the star side as well. So like, really be diligent in doing an inventory of your PVPs right now.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to input them manually, they don't bring you joy.
Right.
And again, remember, every single one of those PVPs has to be designed to work collaboratively together for the entire contract to optimize your star rating. If you have 8 different PVPs and you have, DSNP in there and you have straight MAPD, or like, it's okay with a homogenous population, but realistically, like that doesn't exist as much anymore, right? So you need to consider that when you have all these PVPs, because each one of those needs to be designed to optimize stars performance and financial impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we don't, sorry, Rex.
No, go ahead.
And I know we don't talk a lot about segment level, but like, if you're looking at the counties within a PVP, so I use the example, one of my service areas was San Luis Obispo in California. There's a literal mountain running through the middle of that county. And so really having to strategize and think, okay, what's the members on one side of the mountain need versus the other? How can I design benefits that really benefit both entities? Maybe I do need to have another PVP that's more attractive for another, group of members, but really kind of identifying within your membership and the county level, what do you need? What's going to drive member behavior? The bid, the 2 things that we have to really, control behavior of our membership and get that output in star ratings is the bid and the product we design and the formulary within that. And so thinking maybe you're going to have to cut some costs, maybe you're going to have to put in practices because you're forecasting the liability under the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, well, maybe you do that within, one area versus another. And then that all ladders up, and kind of those levers that you're pulling ladders up to your overall star rating strategy, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's a really great point about, looking at it county by county, because, if you have double bonus counties, I have a plan that I work with that has a lot of double bonus counties, and they leverage, they look at those PBPs and they leverage, the PBPs for that purpose. They want to take advantage of the 10% QBP. So always something that should be considered if you have those double bonus counties.
You guys have touched on a lot of different things that kind of play into all this. So how do the supplemental benefits play into the bid strategy?
Yeah, Jenn and I spent so much time talking about supplemental benefits. Oh my gosh. So if you think about supplemental benefits, like vision, dental, hearing, they've all become table stakes, right? And supplemental benefits has like exploded over the last couple of years. Members are willing to switch plans based on the amount of allowance alone. Like, we've seen that these benefits are more important to members now than things like deductibles, which is crazy, right? But when you think about that, like, I had a health plan that they had a dental benefit. All the benefits were the same except for the allowance. The allowance they had was $1,000. Their competitor, like literally across the street from them, offered $2,000. There was a mass exodus one year during annual enrollment because of just that difference. They were both 5-star plans. Like, it was wild. And so they lost a ton of members that they had for a long time that went to the competition. So supplemental benefits are playing a significant role in just like competition. It's what's driving a lot of member decisions. And I know, like, when I was signing my dad up for his Medicare Advantage plan, that was like one of the biggest considerations on the table. He got like something like $2,400 in benefits, whether it be like an over-the-counter benefit, grocery benefit, utilities, things like that. So supplemental benefits are really driving a lot of decision making by members. And so keeping that in mind and understanding the utilization of supplemental benefits, but then also with bid, if you have to, and Jenn and I were talking about this, if with catastrophic coverage, if you're looking at your member population, these members are going to, like, certain members are going to hit catastrophic coverage in Q1, you're going to have to offset those costs. So maybe you can't offer as many benefits, right? Supplemental benefits. And so again, weighing that balance between, it's like a balancing scale, like what you need to do to maintain financial integrity for the plan, and then also what you can offer the members to keep them happy, to retain them, to have a good experience, and so that you can make money off of them. That's really becoming a really, really challenging thing, especially for next year with all of the regulatory changes with Plan D redesign. Jenn, do you have anything to add there?
I would say, when we were prepping, it was before the 21st, and then CMS issued us on the February 21st, the new guidance requiring Medicare Advantage plans to report their supplemental benefit data through the Encounter data system, beginning immediately, which I was like, whoa, that escalated quickly. I think and along with some other 4-letter words that came out of my mouth as well. But what's interesting is, CMS, if we're looking at, maybe even the last, 2 or 3 years, looking specifically at the VBID model and the iterations of the VBID model and the new Part C and D reporting requirements. CMS doesn't ask us anything for their own health. It's signaling a reason. I think if we're looking also at, proposed rule for 2025 and really cracking down on the predatory marketing practices done by FMOs, brokers, and health plans around these supplemental benefits, because, they weren't supposed to, solve for world peace, as I've heard some people say. It was, supposed to be delivered to members with the expectation of having that reasonable expectation of improving health outcomes. So on one side, I think that health plans are going to have, this Rubik's Cube in the dark of figuring out what's the sweet spot of supplemental benefits. But maybe I'll call it something that is unpopular, that there's many different ways that you can give the look and feel maybe when you're selling those supplemental benefits as being very rich in terms of the dollars, when really it might be buried in terms of, direct member reimbursement or something like blending your flex card. So it's not that a member has $100 to spend for food, OTC, utilities. It's actually combined. And so I think it's easy when you're looking at all these costs you're trying to cut and all those dollars you're trying to save to say, okay, let's get really froggy and, put some funky little wording in there. When in reality, really, I'm going to say danger Will Robinson, because that's going to hurt you on the experience side. Rex, you and I spoke at Bid Bootcamp about, I think last year on the Bid and Stars. And I said, I had a member once say to me, like, I switched my plan because I thought I was going to have this benefit. The member doesn't understand that's a SSBCI benefit. And, as I'm explaining it to her, she's like, well, they lied to me. Well, it's not that they lied to you. They just made it really complicated and didn't think about you ever using this benefit when they, created it. But yeah, I can see how you take it as a lie. So really being mindful of, if we're cutting costs, what does this look like in the end? Because in theory, it's really great when you're cutting costs, but it's kind of like a Christmas vacation and that Jelly of the Month club. When it hurts the little guy, it probably isn't for the best, and nobody wants to get kidnapped on Christmas.
Yeah. Well, taking into consideration too, a lot of health plans are using vendors to implement a lot of these supplemental benefits, right? And I think last year we saw a huge impact to the industry where, these flex cards are going out not loaded with money on them, and members are using them. They're calling in and they're complaining. I mean, that is a huge hit right before, caps are going out. So, strong vendor management, if you're going to offer these supplemental benefits, then you also have to, from the STARS perspective, you have to make sure that you're on top of the vendors. They are going to give a good member experience, because it can hurt you. You can bump up your supplemental benefits and then have it end up being hurting you in experience instead of helping you.
Yeah, I think vendor management. Totally echo that. I think member communication. So I think and you guys were alluding to this, but activating them in new supplemental benefits, right? Making sure they understand what they are. I sit in a lot of enrollee advisory committees with DSNP clients with members who don't understand, how to activate their flex card or where to go to get the groceries, which store they can go to, which groceries they can buy, what products they can buy in general. It's sometimes called a healthy food card or something, but they can't buy fresh fruit, or like, it's not clear, right? It's and it becomes a pain point. So member communications, I think, on that end, but also member communications to members who are negatively impacted by bid changes, to manage their expectations before they get the CAP survey, so they're not negatively surprised, right? So no negative surprises. So in January, if somebody's going to the pharmacy and has the same drug that cost them $10 last month, they have a new Part D deductible and it's $300 to pick it up in January. You don't want them finding that out at the pharmacy, right? So yeah, that member communication piece is big. I know we need to wrap, but one more thing, just because we're, I think our main objective today is to connect the dots with STARS and the bid. And if we get really tactical for just a second, STARS is so big, as we've talked through already, right? Obviously member retention, voluntary disenrollment is a key STARS measure. So yeah, having the benefits in place that attract people and not make them want to leave. So, and it goes back to what you both said at the front, right? Understanding who your members are. So if you're a DSNP plan, maybe it's different than if you're not a SNP plan, right? As far as, the importance of a flex card that helps them pay for groceries or utilities or anything like that. I mean, some DSNP clients really rely on that. So, the members really love that. So I think understanding your members, you can't say that enough, like you guys said at the front end, but voluntary disenrollment, but also, closing HEDIS gaps. I mean, that's definitely facilitated through the bid, right? Are we, what is our cost share? Do we have free preventive care for these cancer screening measures? For medication adherence, do we have all of the drugs, or at least the generic drugs that are in, those medication adherence categories, in a zero cost share or a low cost share? So there's so much you can do in the bid to influence stars positively, right? But it's not easy, and there's a lot you can do, but you can't do it all in 1 year. So you have to understand what are your biggest pain points, right? And what do your members want and need most, because the decisions you make might not be the same that your, competitor across the street makes based on your starting points and your populations. But anything else to add into that from a real kind of in the weeds standpoint, if somebody's in these sessions right now, what should they be thinking about? Anything else?
Just tactically, I say if it has a blue apple, don't put a prior auth on it. Just no, if it's attached to a HEDIS measure, don't put a prior auth on it. Make it easy for them to do what you're trying to drive them to do. Make it easy for them to enroll in mail order pharmacy. Make it easy for them to be able to call in and say, I just got out of the hospital and I need help getting my post-discharge meals. And while you have them on the phone, have a pharmacist that can do that MRP with them then and there. A lot of, getting actions, completed is all about when an individual wants to do something, not making them call back, not making them push 15 buttons on your phone in your IVR tree. Make them be able to quickly action it when they want to do it, because the likelihood that you'll be able to get them back again with a really fun, pithy email. I guess the word of the day I have is pithy. Pithy email or, fun little text message, omni-channel approach, whatever, they're probably not going to. So if you can maximize what you can do when they are taking an action and do the most out of that, like annual wellness visit, okay, who's sitting in your denominator for diabetic measures if they're coming back the next year. Get them in to get, their screenings done while they're getting that annual wellness visit. Don't wait on a second touch point later. Just quickly action in the moment. That's my tactical advice.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what I said before. It's just like the STARS leader, the STARS team, they have to be involved in this conversation. They have to be. There are so many areas that, from a bid strategy perspective, decisions that can be made that will impact STARS outcomes. Again, the bid is the input and the STARS are the output metrics. And if the STARS team isn't at the table or the STARS team doesn't understand the process, that's a really big risk for the organization. And so, Rex, to your point, you want to make sure that the changes that are being put into place for the bid or enhancements are truly going to get the outcomes that you're looking for financially and on the STARS side of things. And having that STARS leader help understand drivers for CTMs and drivers for disenrollment and drivers for core CAPS performance. I mean, those things right there have been quadruple weighted measures. I know they, have declined this year, but they're still double weighted, right? Like they're still a hefty part of the STAR ratings. So if that STARS leader isn't part of the bid strategy, that is a phenomenal mistake that a plan is making.
Totally agree. All right. Thanks so much. Great way to kick off season 3. So Jenn, Kerfoot, Jess, Muratore, we'll tag you guys in the post on LinkedIn so people can stalk you on there and follow you. So good to have you guys on, and we will wish good luck to all the MA plans right that are in bid strategy sessions right now. Hopefully this was helpful, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks Rex. Thanks Mick.
Thank you.